Today I have George Tsoukas in the studio. With him is his daughter Mitsy. George owns Neighbour's restaurant in Vancouver, and it was recently featured on the Food Network show You Gotta Eat Here. I thought this would be a great interview to find out what it's like to own a successful restaurant in Vancouver, and to get all the news on behind the scenes of what goes on a Food Network show. So, when did you open Neighbour's restaurant?
It was in October 1982.
Oh. What made you want to get involved in the restaurant business?
I suppose my family back home, they were somehow in the people's business, small hotel, restaurant, cafeteria, if you like to call it. But then when I got to this country here, first in 1966, lack of my real profession, I'm merchant marine captain. That's what I was doing for 11 years prior to come here. And lack of exercise in my profession, I needed to do something for living, and having had some experience my early days, so I got involved.
What do you believe sets you apart from other Vancouver restaurants?
Well, hard to say precisely, but it is longevity, family-oriented, without bragging. Quantity and quality are unparalleled at all times. At least we try. And the presence of the restaurant has been always clean, friendly. We just try to carry the neighbor's name into a neighborly type of thing attitude, neighborly presence. Those are more or less the attitude. This is more or less what it is at this point in time.
How did you come up with the name Neighbours?
Actually, funny, it's a friend of mine. He said, well, Neighbours is a good name. And, I thought about it. Neighbours is easy to remember. Next door neighbor, neighborly, this and that. So we flipped the coin and we got to the name. That's how we got the name.
I like that. So have you worked there all of your life, basically?
Pretty much. I mean, we all started kind of at a young age just because, Mom and Dad were always working. Mm-hmm. We had Dad's mom had emigrated from Greece, and he looked after us quite a bit at home. But in general, sometimes we'd end up at the restaurant, and sometimes it would be for a long time. So you kind of had to make yourself useful or keep busy. So it's kind of, you're just born into it, right? And either you love it or you don't.
What do you believe it takes to run a successful restaurant in Vancouver?
Well, you gotta think your restaurant is your home. And your home is the place maybe to go sleep. It is a lot of devotion, perseverance, hard work.
How did the show You Gotta Eat Here discover you?
A phone call. Some friend, somebody who knew the restaurant, somebody.
We're not exactly sure who it was.
We don't know.
Sure. They won't really tell us. They won't tell us who it is, of course, right? It's an anonymous thing, but they said that they had a concept for a show, and people make recommendations for a certain restaurant. So when they contacted us, I actually thought it was kind of a joke or scam or something. We get a lot of telemarketers and that in the daytime. And
how long was the filming process?
2 days.
I think they filmed about just over 20 hours, 22 hours. They were awesome. When you hear production company, director, producer, you just think scary. And they came and they were just real
like friends.
People like
they
us.
Were friends.
Yeah. 5 minutes into meeting them, I looked at my sister and I'm like, okay, I can breathe. This is gonna be okay. It was just a night at Neighbours, plus 7 bodies and big huge cameras and lights and these things to make, shadows or, all that kind of stuff. So they were awesome though.
Were there any parts that were your favorites that didn't make it into the episode?
I don't think they could have depicted us any better than what they did. They really did a really great job in showing what Neighbours is really like. because anybody that knows us knows that we all think we're comedians. Clearly we're not, but we think we're really funny people, and we always joke, and we like to keep things a little bit light, not so heavy, because, I mean, you got to love what you do, but at the same time, you know, the day's got to go by, so you got to be able to keep it a little light, and so definitely there's a few jokes that are cracked at Neighbours on the hour. So did they cut anything out? I think in the pizza room there was some funny action that went on while they were making pizza. They got some of it on the show, but they cut out somewhere. My Uncle Johnny, he takes some dough and he keeps it aside and he makes what he calls a samosa. It's not a samosa. It looks more like a naan bread, like he takes the dough and he flattens it and puts it in the pizza oven. It resembles nothing like a samosa, has no filling in it, but for some reason he calls it a samosa. And so when he was, even while we were filming the show, John Catucci says to him, what's that dough over there? He says, oh, Johnny, we got to make a samosa. And so they're like, you guys make samosas? I'm like, no, we don't make samosas. So John Catucci, while they were filming, he went in there and stole a piece of dough and said, I'm going to make my own samosa, which I thought was hilarious. It's funny, right after the show, we aired it at the restaurant on the Friday night. About 10 minutes later, this guy called and he's like, oh, I live downtown, blah, blah, and I want to come in. And he's like, and I want a stir sauce like that.
The people in the restaurant that day, they were just normal people coming to eat there. They didn't know, like...
We had done a little bit of, because when we got our dates, I think it was like 3 weeks before they were on the Food Network, like they have to put a sign up that says, by entering this premises, blah, 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 you agree to be filmed. So yeah, like people like specifically came because they either wanted to be a part of it. Some people didn't want to be filmed. Like they were there and they're like, tell them I don't want to do an interview. I just want to be here for you guys. And I'm like, that's cool too, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then if they chose, I guess it depended on a few things, obviously, where you were sitting for lighting, what you were eating. And they had a few times asked me, well, where do you want us to go? And I said, you know what? Wherever you like. When they showed it on TV, I'm like, they couldn't have picked better people.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't have. Like everybody that was on there is a first name basis that comes to Neighbours. As soon as it aired, I bolted to the restaurant because I have everybody's phone numbers in our phone book.
Was it a scripted thing?
No. While they were doing the recipes and the food in the back, there was nothing that was retake this or redo this. Same thing with the interviews in the front. I mean, I wasn't around when they were doing the interview. I was there, but I couldn't be right next to the person because there's 6 other people standing there. But their instructions for us was just be yourself, do your thing, and that was it. Just go for it, right? So that was a lot of the easier part too, just not having to worry about like say this or do this or a couple of times they stopped because Dad would say like the name of the product he was putting in, like Saputo's tomato something, and they're like, okay, leave out that name, or French's yellow mustard, they're like, just say yellow mustard, and they were covering up labels and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But they were, and so was I mean, Dad, you're a pretty funny guy, but when they were doing the filming, I was kind of around the corner and they have a small screen so you can see and hear it, but you're not in that room. I'm like, what did he take, like a comedian pill this morning? Like, he is hilarious.
Did you get to spend much time with John?
We did. Lunch for us in the front. I mean, Dad was with him the whole time. But, yeah, we got to hang out with him at lunchtime and that. And while they were doing some of the setup for the recipes and that, he was in the front until they needed him. He's a very down-to-earth... He reminds me of, like, a cousin of mine or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he reminds me, like...
No, we're connected. It's just very, very, very quick, not only with him. The other younger fellows, photographers and whatever else they do there, like, you know, to put the thing together, lighting, whatever, they had... we've been here before, we know these people. That's how it appeared to be.
Even when he was eating, like, because we were stuffing him full of food, right? And he's like, okay, I need to slow down because I still have, like, you know, like, all these recipes that I have to taste. And so I'm, like, trying to tell my mom and dad, I'm like, okay, like, my mom's got baklava, spanakopoulos, and Dad's like, try the lamb, try the potatoes, try this. And he's like he clearly is not going to say no to my father, right? And I was like, it's just like going to my mom's house. Like, you walk in, you're like, hey, Ma, first thing she says, what do you want to eat? I'm like, so, yeah, poor guy.
How much food did you have to prep before the crew showed up? Like, how did they work that?
They basically wanted, the preparation that we had to do is they just wanted every ingredient for the recipes that we had.
We had all the ingredients listed with the one with tomato sauce. I got the salt, the pepper, whatever, oregano, whatever I put in little containers, and the tomato, crushed tomato there, and as I was putting it in, this and that and the other.
Yeah, so just pre-measured out.
Yeah, just
nothing pre-made,
time-consuming.
Like,
okay.
Nothing like the lamb, because it takes 3 hours. That was the only thing that he showed, just for the sake of television, preparing it. Like they do in a cooking show. You put the cake in the oven, and then the cake comes out and it's ready. You know what I mean? Like 10 seconds later. We had timed it, so while they were making pizza, lamb had already gone in, so it was coming out. So, not overly too much to do.
How has being on the show affected your business?
I mean, we're blessed, and I say this even before the show, we have been blessed. We have the most amazing people that come and join us and follow us nightly, daily, weekly, just for special occasions all throughout. So we have quite a consistent business, a base as it is. Being on the show, though, just takes it to another level. It's like these people come from Kamloops, Seattle, Kelowna, Surrey. The guy drove from North Van. I'm like, and I'm a foodie, right? So it's like, for me, it's an adventure thing too. Like when I have my day off, I'm like, let's go here, or let's drive there. We end up in the car, we drive for an hour. I'm like, I'm starving, but we're gonna go to this place. So the fact that people come from near and far is very humbling, obviously. But yeah, it's definitely increased business. It's brought in faces that we've never seen. And for us at Neighbours, part of our serving thing is that we want to know who you are. Like, we're nosy too. So our regulars, we know, I'd say at least 90% of them, if not first name basis, we know what you eat. We may not know your name, but we know what you're eating and we know what you're drinking. And so amongst the girls, that's a big thing that we want to make sure we stay connected with the guests. So since Saturday, like it aired Friday, Saturday, it was like a completely different, it was the same Neighbours, but different people. Like there was people lined up outside for over 2 hours, and 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours, there's people lined up, plus our regulars. And so after about an hour of service, I looked at the girls and I'm like, we have to find out who these people are. Like, are they coming because of the show? Like, are we busy just because it's regulars we haven't seen in a while? Like, I need to know what's going on. And it was just like bombarding. It was just like, but a good bombarding, because it's like, wow, like you chose to come to my family's restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, wow, thanks. And like, it's just, and the feeling isn't going away.
What is each of your favorite item on the menu?
Oh.
You know, I'm not sure how to put it to you. I eat everything. Like, you know, I have no, but if you tell me what I like to eat in my restaurant, depends of the day. I like sometimes to build a small Neighbours pizza. The way I want it, let it cool down a little bit. Not very hot, just cool down a little bit, and sit down in the corner with a glass of water or a beer and enjoy it. I enjoy immensely lamb. And I am bragging, but I just have no choice but to say I compete with anybody when it comes to lamb. You will never...
You're going to have a lamb competition with somebody now.
Anytime. Anytime.
So what's your favorite?
I don't know what my favorite is. People ask, really, it's very common that people will, like...
Everything.
New customers, yeah, new customers will come in.
Lasagna.
Or even regulars.
Lasagna, it is number one seller.
Lasagna?
Number one seller.
I love Greek salad. I really do, and some people may say, oh, it's just salad. It's the dressing. The dressing that my dad makes is, like, unbelievable. Definitely the lasagna. And the pizza.
Okay.
People eat it with a teaspoon, like they finish their salad, and there's dressing on the like in the bottom of the plate. It's not even a bowl. And I see people take, like, their teaspoon from their coffee cup, and they drink it.
Well, you guys have answered all of my questions. Thank you guys for coming in and talking to me.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I'm looking forward to see you in our restaurant,
Yeah,
so
for
you
sure.
can
We'd love to be
experiment
your
some.
hosts. Come on down and Bring your friends, your
Bring a
family.
group.
Yeah,
Bring you some friends.
We'll do a buffet. That way you don't ever have to have that issue with what to pick on a menu.
We'll give a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we'll do a
That
little-
would be awesome.
With Making Contact, I'm Courtney Sheppard on Evolution 1079.